The Digital Storm custom loop system. I will never forget this computer. Um, this was my first like solo fly mission fixing a gaming computer. Admittedly, I shouldn't have started with this computer, but at the time, it was really just how things fell into place. And it has everything to do with the major changes that the break fix industry are going through. The shop that I worked for was changing, and they were essentially changing to adopt or adapt MSP work. So it initially had started with break fix, and they did computers and laptops and cell phones. And then that started to become like it not profitable. Um, uh, so yeah, I guess I'll get into that in this video. So yeah, this computer was really, it was like a crash course. I had to learn things very quickly to effectively fix this computer, and I believe I did a very good job. Considering the circumstances at which, I was just starting out. It's not that I didn't have a ton of experience, because before getting to this point, I had been working at Best Buy for 2 years, and I then worked with a digital marketing company, where I was more of like working with software and product productions, administrative stuff. So more MSP actually. That's kind of where I got my experience with like Asana and administrative portals, that kind of stuff, Odoo or CRMs in general. But yeah, this computer came in the shop. So the breakdown for this computer, and we do have a little bit of a playful name for it. I can't share that here, but um, think of it as a really silly commercial for insurance that has an emu in it. Just think of the emu. This is an insurance company that has an emu as a mascot. But yeah, we named it that. And so essentially what happened with this computer is it got brought into the shop while I was working, and it had been in the shop before. To give you an idea of what was wrong with it, Starts actually has everything to do with the fact that it had an i9 13th generation Intel chip. And this was where I got my crash course into what the heck is going on with Intel. When I worked at Best Buy, I was like a really big Intel girl. And the reason why I was into Intel is because I was into animation and art. And Intel used to be the chip to recommend to people who were doing specifically Adobe stuff, because Adobe Photoshop, it's such a bloated program, and it's only single core optimized. And Intel is better supports single core optimized programs like Photoshop way better, until about 2022, and they changed that. So now AMD is just fine. But yeah, I used to be such a big fan of Intel's. So Intel chips are considered bad by some due to recent issues with stability problems in the 13th and 14th generation CPUs, manufacturing process node delays, and increased competition from AMD. These factors have led to a loss of marketing share, negative consumer perception regarding performance and reliability, and significant financial losses. It doesn't really get to the meat and potatoes as to why. But working in the break fix industry for the many months that I did, this is what I saw. They overheat. I've literally taken an Intel 7 14th chip, brand new out of the box, put it into a computer, and that puppy went straight to 96 degrees, like just starting. And then I had to like turn around to the client that I had sold this computer to. I'm building a brand new computer for them. And I said, hey, this i7 that you bought at Best Buy is cooking. I would recommend returning it. And so I took the chip, placed it back in the box, rewrapped it, handed it off to the client, and they bought an identical chip, but a new chip, put it back in the computer, and then it rocketed up to 80 degrees. And I just dealt with this the entire time I worked here. A brand new Intel chip, they almost always skyrocketed to super hot temperature immediately out of the box. And Intel knows about this. There was always, or at least I was told, this had to do with a typo, in essence, like a typo in like their voltage. So it's like a modern CPU typically needs between 0.9 and 1.3 for their core voltage. Some processors, especially when boosted to a higher speeds or overclocked, may see voltage spikes of up to 1.4. So they're pulling a higher than necessary voltage. I know it comes from that. And there was a typo, so they're pulling way too high voltage. And so, if you're dealing with a brand new Intel computer that you're building, a lot of the times I would have to put the computer into a room and turn the AC on and then try to get it into Windows as fast as possible. Because once I could get Windows installed, then I can do the cumulative updates, and then I can do just the absolute myriad of Intel updates. And once we got the Intel updates in, that brought the temperature down. Every time. I just had to get it through that hurdle. And I think what happened with this computer is that it had some sort of update or firmware update or BIOS update, and it was just cooking. Even though it had this really beautiful custom loop system that was designed to keep that i9 down effectively, but it didn't. And honestly, I personally think it had to do with a decision that the client made. So before it showed up in our shop, it had already been like the CPU had already been changed out, because originally he purchased this computer with a 13th gen i9, and those were the original chips, Intel chips, that were having the voltage problems and having the overheating problems. And so this started with an Intel 13th gen i9, and that CPU was dealing with heating issues. And so what he did, instead of taking it back to Digital Storm, which is what he should have done, because Digital Storm, I talked to them in great length, and they said, he's still covered under warranty. Why did he take it to a bunch of break-fix shops? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to help the customer. So he took it to another break-fix shop, and that break-fix shop took apart the liquid cooling and put in a 14th gen Intel for him. He purchased another CPU. He purchased a 14th gen i9. It was an i9 14900K. I think I've got a picture of it. He had this other CPU put in by the other break-fix shop. And then when they got to needing to put the liquid cooling system back together over that CPU, they struggled with, I think, the release valves. So this particular custom loop system, each of the plastic tubes are fastened with these like special clamp release valves. I forgot what they called them. But like they're supposed to be easier to use or work with, but if you're not familiar with them, then they can be very confusing. The previous shop before us just I abandoned the project is what it sounds like. Like apparently they didn't even fully put it back together. They just put the CPU in and then handed the computer back to the client. So that tells me that either they were incompetent, which was the initial thought, or B, the client probably was put too much pressure on them is also what I think happened. It sounds to me like they were like, this is a liability. You can have your computer back. We're not going to charge you. And I've done that so many times at this point that I'm like, when I first started this job, I'm like, oh, it's because the other shop is incompetent. And now that I've been working at this job, I'm like, oh no, it's probably because the client was a nightmare. And that's what I ended up finding out myself. You know, it's like that this custom loop system is intimidating at first, but once you get used to it, once you have intimate knowledge with it and you've worked with it, it is no longer intimidating. One of the things I did from the start when I started working on this is I called Digital Storm. I said, hey, I have this computer that has arrived in my shop. I've never done something like this before. I have nobody here to train me. How do I fix this? And I got the royalty treatment. They were so sweet to me. They sent me along the customer service chain instantly. I didn't have to wait that long. They took me to their tech shop. I got to talk with a technician. I know his name. I spoke with him like every other day. He was so nice to me. I was like, hey, can you send me over your SOPs on how you guys service your computers? And he goes, no, I can't really do that. But you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically verbally give you instructions. And I go, great. And he walked me through this whole system. I basically had him in my ear the entire time I worked on this. And it was so impressive. I will stand at the top of the mountain and I will say how great Digital Storm is because their customer service is immaculate. And they will help not only their customers, but they will help break fix shops, at least at the time that I worked on this. And it was a very positive experience in the midst of a very negative experience. And this computer is a very negative experience for me. This computer essentially was put back together incorrectly by the previous break fix shop. And so he had brought it into us before bringing it into me. And the technician who was there when I first arrived, who then left a week after, he had worked on it, but he simply had put the liquid cooling system back together. He closed it all up and put it back together and refilled it. And in his notes, when I went back and read his notes, like he had confirmed that it was working. He ran it for a while and like made sure that it had no more leaks and that it was solid, tested it out, and then gave it back to the client. And then it was like somewhere around 4 or 5 months that he brought it back to have it serviced again. To keep that in mind, 4 or 5 months, and he has to bring it back into the shop. And if you know anything about liquid cool systems, you know that, okay, something else is going on here. So other people are like 4 or 5 months and it's broken again. Wow, you guys suck. So I get this computer. I'm brand new to break fix. I'm stressed out. Thankfully, I have a resource to lean on, and that is Digital Storm. And so what I do is, if you could, you're seeing from what I'm doing here in the video, that I'm going through and I am just being extra cautious. I put ample amounts of paper towels all over the graphics card, all over the bottom of the computer, so that way it doesn't splash into the power supply. I am just making sure that I go very slowly. Everything is documented. Everything is organized. And I'm just double checking upon double checking. When this arrived in the shop, essentially the new 14th chip had gotten so hot that it melted the liquid cool water block that sits over the CPU. And so there was damage that was done to that water block. And on top of that, the water block had been fastened to the CPU at an uneven rate and too tight. So it cracked the water block. So, I tried to go back through my technician's notes, and it looks like he never touched the water block. And so we were like, okay, this was from that previous shop that had abandoned this, was the last company that touched this water block. Because I had looked at my previous technician's notes, and all he did was put tubes back together and then ran it to make sure that it wasn't leaking. That was all he had written down. He said, refastened the tubes at the joints and ran it to make sure it didn't leak. And that was essentially his notes. So it was like, okay, so he didn't take the whole water block off. That was from the other shop who put the new CPU in and then put the water block on and then abandoned the project because they couldn't figure out, or they couldn't risk doing the tubes. So who knows what drama was unfolding there. So I took the old water block off because I took this whole system apart. I took a picture of that broken water block and I sent it to the technician I was talking to. I was like, is this normal? And he's like, that is not normal. That is a big problem. Probably has everything to do with why it's overheating and acting the way it is. And I was like, okay, So he sends a new water block. He contacts the customer for me because we had discovered that if he sends that water block to us and we have to pay for it, we charge a markup. And I was very transparent about that. And so what he did was he contacted the customer and said, why don't you pay for the water block? We'll send it to you. Also, this is part of the warranty. And so essentially I was doing warranty work. And so if the customer purchases the water block through the company, then the company can warranty that water block. If they send it to us, they can't warranty the water block. So by all means, it was super important that the customer purchased any parts through Digital Storm, which made sense. And so the new water block arrives, and there was an issue with the DIMM slot. So while I was working on this computer, I did pull out the RAM, and I had accidentally broken one of the DIMM slots. It just came off. And so I had to purchase a whole new motherboard. So I bought a new motherboard. This motherboard is an ASUS Prime. I can get you the specs. I could probably put the specs in the details of this video, but I basically purchased an exact replica and then reinstalled it. And so, it costed me about $149. Something along those lines. It's not a very expensive ASUS motherboard. It's actually very commonly used. What is cool about this motherboard is that the planets are different. So I guess I wouldn't call it a collector thing, but yeah, it's kind of got that vibe. You can get one with the Saturn in a different position. Essentially, we made zero money off this computer. I spent a total of probably about 12 hours on this computer, and we had to buy a new motherboard for it, and we only charged him $600 for the total project, which is a lot. That's a lot. But in truth, with the new motherboard, with the 12 hours of work that I had done on this computer, that would have been thousands of dollars. So we lost money on this computer, and this actually kind of tainted, my workflow, or not work ethic, but work reputation with the company, because they started saying, oh, she spends too much time on gaming computers. So I had to really work quickly after working on this computer, because my boss was like, oh no, another gaming computer has arrived, Whitney's gonna spend too much time on it. When I finally got this computer back together, and I followed the instructions given to me, which essentially were, put the tubings back, reset the block over the CPU. From the CPU, make sure that the tube that's going to your radiator is the top one. Make sure the tube that's going from the top radiator down to the CPU, that one needs to be the bottom one, because heat rises. So you want the cool air to go, or the air that's coming from the rest of the system to go to the bottom, and then you want the hot air from the CPU to rise up, then go through the top tube, then over to the radiator where it gets cooled again. And so, and then I made sure to test every single one of the connections. So what they have is these quick release connections, and the quick release connections use it's like a plug that goes into the plastic tube, and then it sets on it like a crown, and then you have this moving piece that has a little rubber ring in it, and then you push it down, and then it kind of locks, and then some of them you screw it. Otherwise, there's others that they just lock, because they're supposed to be a quick release. So you push it in, make sure the rubber tube meets the edge of the tube, and then you push it down and it locks. I wish that I had recorded taking apart and putting back together. Maybe I did. Maybe I have that. Maybe I don't. This computer was an absolute learning experience, and it was extremely stressful. And I learned a lot. If you have a liquid cooled system like this, there are so many factors that can go wrong. Did you know mold can grow in these really quickly? If you're gonna buy something like this, you're gonna need to take it into the shop pretty much twice a year. If you're not willing to take care of a liquid cool system like this, and every twice a year you change out the liquid, then take it into a shop and have that shop person redo the liquid. They have to drain out all the old liquid, they have to put new liquid in, and then they have to test all of those valves. and make sure that they're working properly. And if you're going to have something like this, especially with an i9, especially with a 14th or 13th gen Intel chip i9, you should be monitoring those temperatures at all times. If you're going to buy a computer like this, you have to be techie. There's no getting around it. You're either going to be techie or you're going to be rich. Like, that's how you take care of this computer. If you're not somebody that makes a ton of money, do not buy something like this. Do not do it. It is a nightmare. And for us break fix technicians, it is a nightmare to service. Like, oh my god, this guy is one of the catalysts to my leaving. And it had everything to do with the fact that he brought this back into the shop 7 months later, complaining about a heating issue and a leaking issue, and then called me and just got upset at me. And I'm all like, dude, I did the best I could. I followed the instructions. I did what I was supposed to do. I even called the manufacturer and had them walk me through this. Like, and you call me up and you yell at me because I touched your computer. This is a huge reason why a lot of break fix people quit. Because as soon as you touch a computer, you own that computer for life. And you get held accountable for everything that goes wrong. And I had put my heart and soul into fixing this computer. We bought him a new motherboard. Like, we made pretty much no money. The money he gave to us was the money that we basically had to spend to fix this. And he calls me 7 months later and just lets me have it. He was like, so you don't care about this computer? You're just going to let it leak and overheat? And I was like, that's not that I don't care about this computer. It's that if you want us to service the computer, you need to bring it in and you need to pay for our time. And he goes, well, you should warranty the work. I'm like, no, break fix people don't. Why would I warranty something that I didn't freaking make? You brought it in to me to fix. I fixed it. You took on ownership of something like this that requires constant maintenance. And you're mad that it needs maintenance again? It's unbelievable. It just really gets me heated because I deal with this all the time. And like I said, you know, when you work at break fix, you have to deal with everybody else's bad day. And this was a bad day that I had put friggin' skin in the game on. And so it hurt a lot more when he basically told me that I don't care. That I don't care and that, well, he deserves free labor. And it was like, man, everybody wants free labor from break fix technicians. Nobody values like IT work. You know, it is some of the most stressful work. He should just work on his computer for an hour and then come back and apologize to me because his computer is a nightmare to work on. He probably would spend time on his computer and it would make him cry. And then he comes right back at me and is just like, you don't care. Like, oh my God, I can't, this computer like rearranged my chromosomes. That's how much this affected me. It just really got me going. I learned from this computer that I just really don't like liquid cooling systems. I already don't like them because when I worked at the old B&B, I saw AIOs come through and they were constantly broken. You buy an AIO, it only lasts for like 2 years, maybe 3 if you're lucky. Liquid cool systems that are custom loop, they're thousands of dollars. If you ever want to get them set up, they're thousands of dollars. You're going to spend easily about $2,000-$3,000 on like your tank, on your reservoirs, on whatever custom cut plastic tubing that you're going to want. You're going to have to either figure out how to do it like effectively the right way yourself, or you're going to take it into a break fix shop. When I had first built my first gaming, like serious major gaming computer, I really looked into liquid cooling, and I saw that like the tank alone for custom loop reservoirs starts at around like $272, $434 just for the part. Like the $272 one, or around $300. Actually, there are some for like $179. Yeah, these reservoirs are one of the main components, but keep in mind you're going to need this reservoir on the side of your computer. You're still going to need to put something over your CPU. That's a whole other thing you're going to have to buy. But yeah, altogether you're going to be spending over $1,000 up to $2,000 or $3,000 just for something like this, and constant maintenance. just absolutely constant maintenance. In fact, it's like if you have a custom liquid cool system, every week I would at least spend some time, make sure that it's not leaking, open it up, check it, and check your temperatures. Like, that's what you should be doing if you own something like this, is just constantly maintaining it and constantly just watching it. So that way, if that temperature gets anywhere like above 60, 70 degrees, bring it into a break fix shop and be like, hey, something's going on with this. It's overheating. That way you catch it before something wrong happens. And, in this case, with this computer, it overheated. It actually burnt the freaking reservoir that sits over the CPU. Like, it actually burned the plastic and melted the plastic. That was something that was very memorable about this. When this came in with melted plastic, in fact, I have a picture of the melted plastic I can show. And the broken reservoir as well. If you've got something, you don't want to wait until something like that happens. That's irresponsible. Now that I know this customer and now that I know this computer, that's extremely irresponsible that he let it get that far. This is not a set it and forget it computer. And he expects it to be. Most people do. They buy these types of computers and they think that this is just going to be good forever and then they just leave it alone. No, this is a constant project. If you're going to buy a liquid cool system like this, custom liquid cool system like this, you have to be aware that you're going to be spending time and money on the upkeep alone. Had I known, I would have had that serious conversation with him. That would have warranted, when I first met him, when I first met this computer, before I even touched this computer, I should have called him up and sat him down and just said, hey, now, I'm willing to work on this computer, don't get me wrong, but I want you to be vehemently aware that this computer is a type of computer that requires constant upkeep and constant maintenance. And I'm going to fix this now, but I want this back in the shop in 6 months. Like, I should have held him accountable. I should say, I need to see you again for 6 months. Like, instead, I put it back together and I said, cool, you're done. You're ready to go. Don't take this the wrong way, but I never want to see your computer again. Like, I put so much effort and energy into this computer, and by the time that it was done, the first time I worked on it, I never wanted to see it again. It like traumatized me. And now it's back at the shop right now, or it was. When this video comes out, I will have already left, and as I'm recording this video, it's currently at the shop again, and he demanded that he gets free service, which just, thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy boo. You're a big reason why I'm quitting. Just can't stand this guy's computer. Just absolute nightmare computer. Beautiful, though. Just nightmare computer. In fact, if I ever open up my own break fix shop, I'm not going to take custom loop computers. I'm only going to take what I feel like I can effectively do, and what as a break fix technician, you have to only take projects. Like, you have to look at a project and then you have to see into the future with your third eye and all of the mushrooms you can consume. And you have to go, is this computer going to have problems in the next year? And if it is, don't take the project. I'm going to tell you right now. If you look at a computer and you can see, this is probably going to have another problem in the close future within the year, do not touch that computer. Give that computer right back. I don't care how much they're going to pay for it. They could pay twice your hourly fee. Don't take it. Because what's going to happen is that when it has that problem that you saw, it's going to come right back to the shop, and that person, even if it's been 4 months, even if it's been 6 months, if it's within that year, you owe them. They're going to act like you owe them. They're going to say, you should have seen this coming. And they're going to hold you accountable. Just do yourself a favor. If you see something that has a future problem, tell them about it immediately, or don't take the project. Tell them to buy a new computer. I have to be held accountable for so many people's computers when I don't even like their computers. I think that that's wild. People come in to break fix and they're just like, you touch this computer, therefore you own it. And I would love to say, you know what? You're right, I did fix your computer. But I'm going to tell you something. I wouldn't own this computer if my life depended on it. I wouldn't own this stupid Chromebook. I wouldn't own this Microsoft Surface. I wouldn't own this custom loop liquid cool system. Like, this wouldn't be a purchase that I would have made for this very reason. You took something on, this Alienware with a million ribbon cables on the inside, because you liked the clout. It was designed to be sold. not designed to work properly. So you fell for that. You fell for the marketing. You fell for the sparkly lights and the whiz bangs and all the bells and whistles. And now you're upset about it. Well, sure, you should have thought about how fixable this thing was before you purchased it. And now you're holding me accountable. Yep, when I run my own break fix shop, I'm not taking projects like this. This was a nightmare and traumatizing. Good luck. That also brings into like what I was talking about at the start of the video. Break fix has such a small profit. You don't make too much money off of break fix, or you risk not making a ton of money off of break fix. One of the things that I learned, it's like, our pricing matrix is really only designed for quick turnaround work. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of break fix shops, because I did kind of pretend to be a client, and I called around the local break fix shops just to kind of see what they're doing. And, I did find out that my break fix shop charges less. It's probably a big reason why people were willing to go to the break fix shop that I was at, even with like the atrocious Yelp reviews. But yeah, we were the cheapest in town, according to my personal research, calling around and just seeing what people's prices were like. With that in mind, it's like those prices are only effective if you're not going to be spending a ton of time on a computer. How our model was you get a computer and you diagnose it, and that diagnosis should take no more than 30 minutes, which is tough because you can't get everything done in 30 minutes. If you effectively want to diagnose a computer, you have to test everything. Like I said, if you can see that there's going to be a problem in the coming months, you want to know about it. So that way you can say, hey, customer, here's things that you can fix and here's the immediate problem. You want to come prepared to that conversation. You want to say, hey, your hard drive's failing, but I also am noticing that your RAM is really old, or your power supply might not be effective for maintaining the new graphics card that you just bought. Like, you want to know everything, because you want to be able to call them on it, because you don't want to be like blindsided 6 months down the line with something new that they're going to hold you accountable for, because they're going to expect you to have to know everything about their computer within that allotted 30 minutes that you're allowed to work on their computer and diagnose it, or hopefully catch while you are in the process of finding that solution. I think that we're going to see some big changes, big changes with break fix, because tariffs are definitely affecting the price for stuff. I foretell that in 5 years, we're not going to see very many break fix shops. I'm already seeing that kind of go into effect now with, break fix shops that were once around aren't around anymore. I definitely felt like at the break fix shop that I just recently left, I felt like there wasn't a lot of competition. And there was others, they were a little bit of a drive distance. We somehow managed to kind of not encroach on each other's territory a whole lot. I don't think that we're going to see as many break fix. It's like a lot of break fix are having to transition to MSP in order to survive, because MSP is kind of where the work is at. MSP is essentially, it's called managed services, and you basically run IT for small businesses. You do their emails, you set up new emails for them. Like when they get a new client, you set up a new company computer for new employees. You run like their Entrada or their Azure for them. You typically put in like a remote access program that allows you to have like remote access to their computer to do all of their like updates on their computer, or run virus scans and then monitor their cybersecurity. You also do like a lot of networking. Like MSP, I feel like has a lot of networking. Like MSP can be done fully remote. Also, like you're basically like remote IT. Like if they need to reset their password, you reset their password for them. If they need to set up two-factor authentication, you set that up for them. If they need to change permissions with their like Microsoft Business, you do the permissions thing. So yeah, and you charge monthly for that. Like, and it's not much. Like you can maybe charge them like $30 a month to put remote access programs on like 4 or 5 of their computers, and then just make sure that those computers are constantly updated, and virus scans and cybersecurity, and the user has a protection plan or needs updates for their emails, And then if they need additional IT services, you can do remote IT over the phone. Oh, their emails aren't coming through Outlook. They need help with that. So they would pay you hourly for that, unless, of course, their MSP plan covered a certain allotment of hourly time. And so that's kind of the business model that a lot of break fix shops are going towards, because physically fixing computers has become way too expensive. Parts are way too expensive, and it's extremely time consuming to effectively diagnose physical computers anymore, especially with all of these computer companies that are manufacturing computers with like a variety of different parts, which just kills me. It's like I wish I had worked in break fix industry back in like the early 2000s to early 2010s, because like I hear like fantastical tales of being able to like order a part and have that part arrive and just work, because like nowadays you can't just order a part based upon a model number. The same model laptop, will take like an HP Envy, for example, the number one most breakable laptop in the world, at least somewhat fixable. HP Envy, all right? We're going to do an HP Envy like 15-L12345 or whatever, because that's how their model numbers typically work. That HP 151345 is going to be sold at Circuit City. It's going to be sold on Amazon. It's going to be sold at the old B&B. It's going to be sold from their actual websites. It's going to be sold at Costco. And every single one of those locations is going to have a different variation of that model. Like, yeah, if you look at it, it's the same computer with the same model. But the one at Circuit City is touchscreen, and the one at Best Buy has a better battery, and the one on Amazon might flip over for whatever reason, do gymnastics. So what's going to happen is, because all of these computers with the same model are all different, it's all going to have an absolute smorgasbord of parts. And so you can't just order a new screen. I learned this the hard way. You can't just order a new screen and expect it to work. You can't just order a new battery and expect it to fit. You have to open the whole device and get the part number. And then you put in the computer manufacturer, HP, computer model, NV15-12345, and then the part number. Battery is a XL145QST9, and then you can find it. And I'm going to tell you something, and this is going to be a whole other video. There are no magical places to get parts. It's all Amazon or eBay, baby. Like, very few break fix shops actually have a secret little place that they get parts from. It's the same shit that the customers are gonna see. The customers are like, well, I just took a look at a new tube for this liquid cool system, and it cost $80 for the tube. Maybe you guys have an in. No, we don't. That same $80 tube, you know what's gonna happen is I'm gonna find the same thing that you found online, and I'm gonna charge a markup. It's $80 has now become $100. Congratulations, you're getting played. It's how to run a business. Congratulations. Welcome to working with a business. Really. Oh, you can tell that I'm passionate about this stuff. This is why I'm making this YouTube channel. In essence, this YouTube channel is my therapy. I'm essentially Loki when he's being like beat around by the Hulk. That's essentially what it felt like working in the break fix industry. Client comes in, broken computer, fuck you, bang, 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 bang. And after all the trauma I've experienced while fixing their computer, here's your computer back. And they're like, thanks, you're the best. And then 2 months later, they're like, something else is wrong with this computer. You should have known about it. It's like, no, I only had 30 minutes to diagnose your computer. You came in and said the battery was wrong. I tested the battery. I only focused on the battery. We replaced the battery. Now you have a sticky K key. That sounds like a personal problem. If I were to make my own business in tech, I would like to do classes. I would like to teach people how to use their tech. It's like, then I don't feel like I'm responsible for their actual computers. And then I feel like I'm actually doing something. Like, I could do one or the other. I could teach people to work with their tech. I could sit down and show them, be like their life guru for tech. Or I could fix their computers, because I don't want to do both. And I'd rather just not fix their computers. I love fixing computers. I really love taking apart computers and fixing them. That's why part of my plan in the next coming months is to essentially go back to retail. And then instead of fixing people's personal computers, I want to remove the client out of the equation if I'm going to fix computers. I think I'm just going to go to like Goodwill and just see if any computers were donated and then see, or like go to Facebook Marketplace and buy computers like no more than like $40, and then just see if I can turn them around, see if I can refurb them, and then if I can, see if I can do it for cheap and then resell them. And then I will have to provide a warranty. But I could do that. Like, here's this computer. I warranty it for 6 months. Make sure to break it within the first 6 months to get your refund. Otherwise, yeah, after 6 months, I'm not going to cover any work on it. Like, that's just, things wear down. Like, that's something I don't understand. Like, oh my god, I could get into warranties. That's going to be a whole other video. We're still talking about this custom loop computer. This custom loop computer was a nightmare to work on because if you buy something like this, you're going to have to get it serviced, like I said, every 6 months. And instead, he's like, oh, it's getting hot and toasty. Whoa, it shouldn't be doing that. Little baby. My last video that I posted didn't have an outro. So I think I'm just going to say, remember your passwords. Because if there's anything that really traumatized me the most about working break fix, it's that people refuse to write down or remember their passwords, and then they hold break fix people accountable as though we are some sort of magician. So you are responsible for your own passwords. Please write them down. I don't care in what format anymore. I used to joke that, like, people wrote down their passwords on sticky notes and put it on their computer. That's at least something. The majority of people will make a password and never remember it. And that's just how their workflow is. They just make a password and then they get locked out of their account because they never write their stuff down. Or their computer remembers it. That's going to be a whole other video. No, you do not want the computer to take responsibility of remembering your passwords. That's a really bad cybersecurity plan. You are going to get taken advantage of. So, yes, my outro is remember your passwords. There, I'm done.